She was just so happy at that moment. It was just such a divine appointment. And at that moment when she had said that, it just seemed like that's what this was for. And it was so, I would remember just crying. I just couldn't believe what this night had come to. At that moment, I was like, you know, and it just made me feel so good. Thank God for this project.
So what did you do for the first phase?
So the first phase was to $2. And I was like, what am I gonna do with $2? You know? But then I was able to, I was understanding that there was a lot that I can do with the 2 hours. I saw the opportunity and was like, oh hey, that's kind of just what happened. My family and I were all out down in Balboa. We were gonna go on the Duffy boats. There was an older couple that was there. They had parked, you know, and you needed money for the meters. And I just noticed that, you know, the man was just kind of like looking at the meter and, you know, just kind of, and he was looking at it for some time and stuff. And I just thought I'd go up to him, and I had quarters on me like a time. And so I was like, oh, do you know, you need me to help you with that? I've got tons. He was like, oh man, these things are, you know, I just can't figure them out. And I just popped, you know, some quarters in there, and I realized I helped him out, and it just made me feel good that I was able to just help an elderly person. It was quiet. There wasn't a lot of activity. I think it was in the winter.
So phase 2 came up. I said you're going to give big with your time. What did you think when I first told you about it?
When you first told me about phase 2, that was great for me. That's what I love to do is give my time, because I think that's where, you know, that's where the work really begins with people. So like that time to spend with them, and during that time what you can share about yourself with them. So I was all on board for that. It all kind of came together on last Valentine's Day. I was in class, and it was my final for my psychology class, and I was like really stoked to be done out of that class early. It's Valentine's Day, and I was not thinking of the challenge at this point. I just felt really moved at that point to call a friend or just spend some time with someone, because I still had a few more hours, you know, in the evening. I made a phone call to one of my girlfriends, and she didn't answer, and it was funny because I was driving home, and I thought, gosh, I wonder if Dave is in the parking lot. He's a homeless guy that I'll sometimes go and see, and like we'll go buy him some groceries, or, you know, he's always just hanging out in the parking lot. And I was like, well, maybe I can make his night, you know? This is like at 8:30 at night. And so I was driving through the parking lot, and I didn't see him. The thought didn't just end at that point. I was like, I need to see I need to find someone. And I just had this like total feeling of driving through that whole parking lot. So it was like about a mile stretch that I was driving through those parking lot in the corners, looking everywhere that I could for someone. And all of a sudden, I see this figure of this lady just kind of in the middle of a parking lot. It was such a divine moment. I was like, that's the person. So I go, and actually I seen a car just drive away from her, and she was doing this like dancing, and then I drive up to her, and I'm like, I roll in the window, and I'm like, hi. She's like, oh hi, and I go, happy Valentine's Day. And she's like, well, thank you. Oh, I'm so happy. Those people just gave me $2. I'm so happy. Thank you, Jesus. She just started, you know, and I was like, well, are you hungry? And she's like, oh, yeah, I am. And I said, you want to go to dinner with me? And she's like, oh, she's just so surprised. She's like, yes. And I was like, great, well, get in the car. And so she got in the car. I had a lot of different thoughts at that moment. I felt really comfortable, but the second thought was, oh my gosh, what am I doing? I just had somebody in my car, you know? But again, I just had such peace about it, and I could just tell that she was a very kind lady, you know, and you could tell she's a street person. So I asked her then, well, what do you want to eat? What do you feel like eating? So I was like, do you want to go to Maggiano's? And I was giving her all these options, you know, and I was like, or Claim Jumper, and she didn't even know. She was just so happy at that moment. She's like, oh my gosh, thank you, Jesus. She just kept giving praises to God, and so it was awesome. And then she goes, let's go to the mall. And she got all excited, and she's like, that's South Coast Plaza Mall. And finally I just suggested, well, let's go to Claim Jumper. And so she's like, oh yes, let's do it. And we were just hitting it off. It was just such an easy thing, easy conversation. I talked to her about her family, and she's from the South and she's out here. Clearly she had a mental illness. But she had books and papers and all this of churches that she had been to in the local area, and we really got in deep about faith and our faith and her faith, and just from her family. Like I said, it was just such a divine appointment. She has a lot of experience with kind of like cult type people, and I could tell this is where her mental illness kicked in, and her opinion of God was just a little, off because of this type of cult environment that she's used to. But at the same time, you could tell that she knew him and that she feared him, and she also in a loving way. And then she talked about her son, and just the one thing that stood out to me, she just said, pray for your son, just pray for your son, and at that moment when she had said that, it just seemed like that's what this was for. It wasn't something I was doing, to be honest with you. I hadn't been heavily praying for my son and his health and his character, his heart, his mind. All of that, I just wasn't. We talked for 3 hours, probably, just right there at the restaurant. I wanted to put her in a hotel because she lives in Lake Forest, and I didn't want to drive her home to Lake Forest, but I didn't want to end the night and just be like, bye, go back to the street. I just didn't feel good with it. But she actually didn't want to go to a hotel room, and she said that that she can take a bus over to a place down in Anaheim, an IHOP, and they let her stay there through the evening, and just sit at a table, and she'll do some reading, and then she'll take a bus back home. So okay, I can do that. She told me to take her to a bus stop, and so I did. Again, we just sat in the car for maybe another 45 minutes to an hour. We actually prayed together. And it was so, I remember just crying. I just couldn't believe what this night had come to. It's such an experience that will always stick with me. I still have a picture of her, and I have an address for her and an email, and I've sent an email, but I haven't heard back from her. I have her picture because it reminds me to pray for her, and I do. I'm reminded by that picture when I go through my photo albums in my phone, and it's like I see it, and it reminds me to pray for her.
What do you think you were for her that day?
I felt like I was just God's hands giving her a hug, letting her know that she's loved. She was just so taken back that I was just some stranger. Why do you want to do this for me? She kept saying, why do you want to? And I was just like, I just do, and I'm like, I just want to spend this time with you. And I kept giving God all the glory, because I could feel it. It was so divine, I learned something from her. I showed her his love in that moment. We're all people. We're all his children. We're all loved. She's completely content with the lifestyle she chooses.
It's about giving, ultimately.
Right.
So,
right.
And sometimes you can't force that, or you can't force it. It's
Yeah.
not really giving. You can give something, but it's not really giving on the heart level.
Yeah, and actually that's a great way to start with phase 3, which is what you said. That I felt pressure to get this done. I've been busy, but I was like, gosh, what am I gonna do? And to be honest with you, I'm involved in so many different things. I searched, and a lot of the other things that I'm involved with. Not to say that there's no heart connection, but it wasn't intentional for this project. So I wanted to make sure that what I had done, what the intentions were, all there for this project. And I was laying in bed, and had come to mind that this motel church service that I have been seeing. I just have a heart for homeless. It comes natural for me. And what this ministry is through Saddleback. They have people who are leaders and bringing church to a motel. And people who live in these motels all throughout Orange County, there's 6 people per room. They don't have credit. They can't make, they don't make a lot of money. They make their money off of recycling. Basically, they're homeless, but they have a roof over their head because they're making it work, and they're in these crummy hotels. I called my friend Ryan and was like, hey, I want to be a part of this ministry. I have got some money that I want to be able to donate. What do you guys need? I want maybe some children's Bibles, maybe what do you need? I want to know. And his response was, why don't you come? And he's like, come spend a few times with us, and that way you can see what the need is. And I was like, okay. It was great. I got there and they had Bibles. They had actually everything because the church provides it. So I just kept coming back. And every time I came back, I brought milk and juice, or like pick up some breakfast burritos and take that with me, because we feed breakfast on those breakfast mornings, and a lot of times Ryan gets small groups to volunteer, and that would feed about 30 people. I did it for about 6 weeks in a row. Then it came to a point where Thanksgiving was coming up. I thought, all right, here's going to be the big, the big finale. And I had made some really great friends with the community there. And I thought, well, let's do something a little bit more special. A lot of them had shared that they would love to be able to cook. These are people in their 50s, 40s. They would give anything to just be able to cook their meal. So they canceled on me. I had bought in all the food to do. But that's okay, because I got my family to serve these people at the motel with me, which is a huge deal because we've never served together as a family. My mom and I made green bean casserole, sweet potatoes, and there was a big crowd, and it was just nice to have my family serve with me, and for that community to meet my family and just be family. With them, and it was great to break bread with them. I mean, literally, like they're like a second family to me, and I still do go. I go every other weekend now. Ethan, he's been a part of it too, and he's become friends with some of the kids there. For Halloween, I wanted to take one of his old costumes and take it to Jordan, one of the kids. And Ethan had saw that I had it in the car, and he's like, "Mommy, why is my Plex costume in the car?" And I didn't want to tell him. And so I was like, well, babe, we're just going to let Jordan borrow it, okay, for Halloween, and then we'll get it back. And he goes, no, Mommy, I want to give it to Jordan, and he can keep it. At that moment, I was like, and it just made me feel so good. And it was great, all just for that one moment. It's just all been worth it, There's a lot of giving that came out of just that $100. There's giving in so many different other ways, that came out of it. With the milk and orange juice weekly, whatever wasn't finished, I actually would take up to people's rooms. I would go take the gallon of milk to, some of the people who had babies. So that was all the time, giving the milk and the orange juice every week. Ethan and his costume, giving away his Plex costume. My family giving up their Thanksgiving plans to serve on Thanksgiving. Giving my time, becoming a family with them. I have a big heart for people who, are struggling, and especially in a motel, because I remember when I was in my addiction, I remember sitting in motels like that. So it's like, now I get to go to these motels and share my love with people. And just to see the 180 from when I used to hang out at these hotels to now, like, how I hang out at these hotels,
Can you share with others that may do this project in the future some of your thoughts, maybe some tips?
It's just cool. It's cool stuff. I was excited. I was, honored that you had asked me. I just felt that it was going to be a good experience. It was exciting to just know that I was going to be a part of something. I'm not going to lie. There was times where I'm like, oh, I've got this project, I think it's because I felt bad I couldn't meet your timeline. But that's just because it's been such a year for me, just with the ton of changes, that it's just been going on in my life. Thank God for this project. This is definitely a project that is not going to only make an impact on someone's life, but on your own. And it's whether you are spiritual or not spiritual, it's always great to be able to come into someone else's life and just make them smile for a day. It's all worth it. Every moment of it is completely worth it. So I would definitely take on the challenge, and within a year, you can see how much you've grown from the experience that you have experienced throughout that year. Giving.